Welcome to SushiBites. Ghost Sweeper Mikami is a manga series created by Takeshi Shina. It spawned an animated show and 2 video games, as well as pachinko machines. The animated show is something really special, and all fans of vintage anime should really take a look at this one-of-a-kind sexy and spooky series. Lots of laughs, lots of fun moments. Here is the gist. Reiko Mikami is a hot-blooded Catholic exorcist who loves money. She runs an exorcism company aided by the young Tadao Yokoshima and a ghost named Akinu. They get into silly situations and ultimately succeed in extorting huge sums from their victims, I mean clients. Of the 2 games based on the show, I want to talk about the PC Engine one first. I wish to do this so that once we've got this boring filth out of the way, we can focus on the awesome one. So firstly, let's discuss the PC Engine CD Ghost Sweeper Mikami game. When you're making a game of Ghost Sweeper Mikami, you would really want to consider making action the key part of the game, the most important part of the game. And herein lies the problem with the PC Engine CD version of Ghost Sweeper Mikami. There is no action. The majority of the game is spent either picking random cards from your hand that go against the enemy's random cards, and you either do or don't deal damage accordingly, but there's no way to work out what each card does or what card your opponent is going to have, so it's all luck. And the other part of the game, which is entirely cutscenes that are in complete Japanese. I'm sure it's interesting to people who can understand it, but for me, it's just a case of keep having to go through the same button press trees over and over and over and over again until I actually find out which one progresses the game forwards to another tree of selections. I'm sure it's a fantastic game for people who understand what's going on and like, you know, a bit of luck in their games. But to me, it just seems like an absolute squandering of the potential of the Ghost Sweeper Mikami license, and it's incredibly disappointing to think that only 2 main Ghost Sweeper Mikami games were made, and only one of them is any good. And that is the Super Famicom version, which we will be looking at now. This is Ghost Sweeper Mikami Joreshi wa Nice Body for the Super Famicom. It literally translates to Ghost Sweeper Mikami graces the exorcism with her nice body. Don't worry, although the name sounds very risque or risky, you don't have to be alarmed in this case. This game is perfectly safe for work, a lot more than some of the games we may eventually cover on SushiBites. So, this is the Ghost Sweeper Mikami game that I think is actually good. It's a side-scrolling platformer. It was developed by Natsume, who made Pocky and Rocky, Kiki Kai Kai in Japan. They made Harvest Moon. And this is another game that really backs up their library of fantastic games. It's a straightforward side-scrolling platformer. You have a sword-type weapon that you can attack with. This is a tool that Mikami uses in the TV series and manga to attack enemies and to ward off demons, so it's part of the series canon, and I like that they didn't just make a weapon up. And you go around hitting ghosts and knocking ghosts out, finding the main enemy of each level, killing that enemy, and taking a jewel or gem that they drop. And then eventually, once all 7 gems have been uncovered, you fight the final boss. It's basically a really, really good, challenging platformer. You have to play on normal to see the whole game, and it's challenging. It's not impossible by any means in terms of difficulty, but it does require lots of memorization and lots of getting used to the game's mechanics and really getting a feel for it. But I really do consider it a game worth getting to grips with and understanding, because its mechanics are so good. Now, where I think the game shines the most, I mean, the platforming's good and the levels are fun and they're quite lengthy, but where I think the game really shines the most is the boss battles. Now, the first boss is kind of predictable, boring, not much really goes on, but every other boss battle in the game is very interesting, has its own cool gimmick or mechanic that it brings in. So the second boss battle is against a doll, and you can't attack the doll directly, you've got to attack its hands. You have to defeat both its hands. There's a boss that is a ghost of a dog, and it can spawn another, like, imitation of itself, and you have to fight the two of them at once. That's pretty cool. And then later on there's a boss who's a clown that jumps on top of a giant rat and spawns little tiny clowns, and if there's 3 of them on screen at once, they play a tune and you get turned into a little girl for 10 seconds or whatever, and you can't attack, and that boss battle's pretty cool. But the coolest boss battle, in my opinion, is the boss battle on the Playboy Mansion level, because you fight an apparition, a younger version of Reiko, from when she was being trained to become an exorcist. And that boss battle is really tricky because of the way she moves during that boss battle, because she's got most of the moves you have and a couple you don't. And you have to be fully aware of what's going on to be able to tackle that boss. And then once you defeat that apparition, you still got to fight the horse guy that made the apparition appear, and you can just wail on him because he has no attacks, he can't fight back, so you just wail on him 6 or 7 hits and just watch him writhe around in pain. It's so cool. Yeah, in terms of what Ghost Sweeper Mikami is about, I think the action game gets it, the Super Famicom game, because it's really, really action-based, really fun, really fast-paced, compared to that boring card game with so much talking. Basically, the way I look at it is this, right? Ghost Sweeper Mikami, if you're a fan of vintage manga or vintage anime, if you like horror, if you like something a little bit raunchy, I think you will love Ghost Sweeper Mikami. But even if you don't take the time to look at the animated series or look at the manga, I would absolutely suggest, if you even so much as consider yourself a fan of 2D action platformers, if you consider yourself a retro gamer, you owe it to yourself to play Ghost Sweeper Mikami Joreishiwa Nice Body all the way through. It's such a good game. I bought it as an actual import recently in the past couple of years. I've played it on my Famiclone, my Super Famiclone. I've got a Retro Duo, and sitting back with that and playing that game through all the way was so much fun. Playing it on the physical controller just made it all the more better. But even if you can't do that, download the ROM, and play it yourself. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I really enjoyed it, and I just wanted to share that enjoyment of this game with you. It's nice to have a game here on SushiBites that I can actually say, yeah, it's worth playing. Even with Cotton, I was sort of, it's worth a look, but Ghost Sweeper Mikami Joreishiwa Nice Body, it goes beyond worth a look. It's worth an entire playthrough. Honest to God, fantastic game. Until next time, if we live that long.